A woman, already a mother, pregnant with a wanted child, dealing with a terrible and frightening prognosis, has the Republican Attorney General and Republican activists in Texas overriding the advice of her doctor.
Before we went through this, I never imagined that we would be in this position. You know, I've said I never thought I would ever need or want an abortion. I always wanted a big family. I think forcing me to continue the pregnancy and the pain and suffering put me through the risks of continuing the pregnancy, the risks of childbirth. I think it's cruel.
In the state of Texas, where Attorney General Ken Paxton is making it clear that he has every intention of making this young woman who is attempting to have a life-saving procedure to save her life from the difficulty of her pregnancy. Now, I don't talk a lot about reproductive rights on the show. We did cover in great detail the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the effect that we knew that would have on Roe versus Wade. And we do recognize the need for Roe versus Wade and the right to privacy, such that this mother, and we'll play a clip for you in a moment, she should have the right to have this procedure done within the confines of the private conversations she has with her doctor. And this is what has been infringed upon by religious zealots all over this country, who are more interested in their particular dogma than they are the safety and the well-being of women. And in this case, it's the safety and well-being that stops at the life of the child, right? We do understand very clearly that most of these advocates who claim to be pro-life, they are only pro-life. They're really just pro-birth. They don't have any compassion or any systems or anything in place to actually take care of children after they are born. And so with that in mind, let's pause and listen to Kate Cox as she describes her ordeal as interviewed by MSNBC.
Through this, I never imagined that we would be in this position. You know, I've said I never thought I would ever need or want an abortion. I always wanted a big family. I think forcing me to continue the pregnancy and the pain and suffering put me through the risks of continuing the pregnancy, the risks of childbirth, again, especially given how my last two went. I think it's cruel.
Ken Paxton, a man who we can talk about at length another night, is threatening in writing to prosecute any hospital that performs an abortion on this woman. Today, Paxton asked the Texas Supreme Court to intervene. A woman, already a mother, pregnant with a wanted child, dealing with a terrible and frightening prognosis, has the Republican Attorney General and Republican activists in Texas overriding the advice of her doctor.
That's the part.
Texas's anti-abortion law is already being challenged in court by 20 Texas women who say the state ban puts their lives in danger by denying them medically necessary abortions. This is the post-Roe world created by Republicans.
That's right.
Voters have repeatedly shown they do not want these.
That is the main part right there, right? The fact that women's lives are in danger because of political ideology and religious zealotry. There really is no clearer picture of where we're headed as a country than a Republican attorney general targeting an individual, threatening doctors, preventing them from giving her life-saving care, all in the name of what? Protecting the lives of children? When we live in the society that these are the same people who insist on sending your children to school without masks, right? I want us to look at the full hypocrisy here. These are the same people who tell us to turn away and don't look at the devastation that's happening to the children in Palestine and Gaza, right? These are the same people who are okay with the idea of school lunch debt, where children can't eat at school because they have school lunch debt. And so it really doesn't resonate with me when I hear them say that they're doing this on behalf of children, when everything else that we see them doing in reality is detrimental to children. And in this specific case, Kate Cox is facing the possibility of her own life being lost. And here's the worst part about this, or maybe not the worst part, but it's an insult to injury, is that across social media, people are demanding that she tells everyone her prognosis. What is so bad about her situation that she has to get an abortion? And not only does that violate her privacy, her constitutional right to privacy, not only is that a violation of her HIPAA laws, like forcing her to say that, it really just shows you the level of bad faith that we're engaged in, where people would rather prosecute her in the court of public opinion as to whether her condition is actually bad enough versus taking the advice of her doctor, who has already said her condition is bad enough. This is truly the nature of where we are in America. And David, right here, I want to shift because I want to juxtapose this with a clip from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, who last week compared himself to the prophet Moses. And the reason I want to bring this up here is because you need to be able to see the direct line between the type of legislation that is being enforced around this country, like the Texas abortion ban, the type of behavior that's coming from Republican leaders like Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas, who's targeting this young woman, Kate Cox, and preventing her from getting life-saving care as prescribed by her doctor. I need you to draw the direct line from that type of behavior and the mindset of religious zealots who believe that they are here to do exactly what you just saw being done to Kate Cox. They are here. They believe that they are called by God to implement their very specific type of Christianity with the force of law, as best evidenced by Ken Paxton threatening to sue and imprison doctors who perform this procedure. So listen to this clip. This was just this week where Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who is perhaps the highest, no, not perhaps, most certainly the highest ranking Christian nationalist in this country on the face of the planet, the most powerful Christian nationalist out there. I want you to just take into consideration the depth of thinking and conviction that goes into believing that you are called to be Moses. Take a listen to it.
The Lord told me very clearly to prepare and be ready. Be ready for what? Okay, I don't know. We're coming to a Red Sea moment. What does that mean, Lord? And then when the speaker's race happened and Kevin McCarthy, who's a dear friend of mine, was deposed, vacated from the chair, oh, wow, well, this is what the Lord may have been preparing us for. And so I started praying more about that, and then the Lord began to wake me up through this 3-week process we're in the middle of the night and to speak to me and to write things down, plans and procedures and ideas on how we could pull the conference together. Now, at the time, I assumed the Lord is going to choose a new Moses, and thank you, the Lord, you're going to allow me to be Aaron to Moses. And so I worked to get Steve Scalise elected speaker. That didn't happen. And then Jim Jordan, who's like another big brother of mine, no, that didn't happen. And then Tom Emmer, and ultimately 13 people ran for the post. And the Lord kept telling me to wait. So I waited. And then at the end, when it came to the end, the Lord said, now, step forward. Me? I'm supposed to be Aaron. No, the Lord said, step forward.
He essentially just compared himself to Moses, saying that in this process of becoming the Speaker of the House, where he thought that he wasn't going to be so important. He thought first that he was going to be a secondary guy, that he was going to be the backup to whoever the next Moses is. He said that he believed that God called him and the Republican Party to bring forth a new Moses to lead America through what he called a Red Sea moment, a Red Sea moment. And in that Red Sea moment, he believes that the conservative movement in this country, Christian nationalism, has been called to do something revolutionary on behalf of their very specific doctrine and their very specific gospel. He is the Speaker of the House, third in line to the presidency. In the line of succession, there is the vice president, and then there's the Speaker of the House. And so we are in the position where the highest ranking official that we've seen in our lifetime carry the mantle of Christian nationalism to such heights and have the ability to implement, to usher in policies that are even worse than what we see in the state of Texas. But he also has the ability to block policies that are beneficial to humanity, and to do so all in the name of his very specific interpretation of Christianity. This is the problem that we're facing, and I need you to draw the line between the federal level where this is happening, and on the state level where this is happening, and on the local level where this is happening. It's happening right now at your school boards all across the country. It's happening right now at your city hall meetings all across the country. There's an inordinate amount of pressure that's being placed on city leaders, on state leaders, and on the federal level from this Christian nationalist movement to install their policies and their beliefs with the force of law. Right? That's the thing that's the most terrifying about this, is that they're not satisfied with espousing their beliefs in public. Right? Because, okay, fine. You believe what you believe, and you have the right to believe that based on the Constitution. But what you don't have the right to do is to twist the Constitution, and to twist our judicial system, and to twist our executive branch, and to twist our legislative branch into enforcing your specific type of Christianity on America with the force of law. Now, I want to spread this out a little bit further, because it's not only happening in the United States. It is a form of ethnic and religious nationalism that is spreading all over the globe. We see it in the likes of Vladimir Putin and his Orthodox Christianity underneath the leadership of Patriarch Kirill, I believe is the name. We see it with Modi in Israel. In India. We see it with their particular brand of Hindu nationalism. We've seen it for years with far right-wing religious nationalism in form of Islamic nationalism. We've seen it across the country, around the world. But what we haven't seen is what's happening right now, which is an alliance being formed. It has the appearance of diversity. It has the appearance of something along the lines of the League of Nations, right? Where you have independent nations who all lean towards ethno-nationalism, who all lean towards religious nationalism. You see them joining forces around the globe in lockstep with Republicans here in the United States of America. This is why you have American Republicans going and visiting with Erdogan and visiting with far-right extremists across the globe, in consultation with Marie Le Pen out of France, in consultation with Modi, in consultation with this far-right-wing extremism that is taking root all around the globe. You see it rooted here in the United States of America, and there is a direct line to the Speaker of the House. There is a direct line to state leaders like Ken Paxton. This is a well-coordinated and a well-thought-out attempt to restructure the United States of America completely and totally away from democracy and towards something like a theocratic fascist state. That's a lot of words to say that we are honestly and genuinely dealing with a shift towards something more like Handmaid's Tale than we ever could imagine. There's no question about it. We've been tracking it for a very long time. There's specialists who have been tracking it for at least the last 2 years. We've been crying about it and telling everybody, crying out about it and telling people about it for at least the last 2 years, pointing people to the fact that there's a very real threat that is alive and well inside of our institutions. This is how you have Senator Tommy Tuberville out of Alabama, who's able to obstruct the entire military with his particular interpretation of a woman's right to choose, right? The entire block is just happening in the Senate, where there's no officials who are able to be promoted. The chain of command in the military is severely broken down because of all of the blockages that have been placed, the filibusters that have been put in place by Senator Tommy Tuberville out of Alabama. He is directly tied to this Christian nationalism that wants to use the force of law to punish everyone they don't agree with. And so we need to start seeing these things holistically in the bigger framework of what's happening on the global stage. On the global stage, we have religious zealots, extremists of every religion. Okay, I want to be clear, of every religion, who are pushing their governments towards either ethno-nationalism or religious nationalism, either a nationalism that's based on your ethnicity and your ethnicity alone, or your nationalism that's based on your religion. Just swap out the religions. That's all. Swap out the ethnicities, right? Swap out the nations. But in every single country, we see powerful people maneuvering themselves into position to execute religious extremism through the force of law. And this is exactly what we see happening in Texas.
The work that we're doing here is not going to stop when it comes to these type of discussions. It's going to be for us and by us here on this platform when the media is telling us to look the other way. Your support is what helps us move forward. Join patreon.com/like it or not. Help us grow.